Hello and welcome to today's TQ Solutions overview on driving engagement and retention. In the next few minutes, we're going to take a look at the TQ Talent Management Software solution and touch on several items on how we drive engagement and retention within the workforce. Before we do, let's talk about some of the benefits that we will see from this afternoon's TQ Solutions overview. One, we're going to look at how do we provide consistent communication of the most critical performance dimensions within the organization. We're also going to talk about providing an ongoing feedback loop between managers and employees and different ways in which we can do that. We're going to talk about systematic identification of development opportunities and how we can leverage things like performance reviews and 360s and even behavioral-based assessments to assist in that part of the process. We're going to look at how we surface high performers and high potentials within the organization. How do we identify those? Keep track of those, etc. And lastly, how do we create a bench of future leaders? Again, all towards driving engagement and retention within your organization. Okay, so here we are. We are at Verium Analytics, which is a demo company that we use here at TalentQuest to showcase our solutions. And I'm going to log in as a manager with some administrative rights by the name of Carmen Hernandez. And as I log in a moment here, we're going to see a couple of things. One, we're going to see Carmen's dashboard of activities of what she needs to complete, and then take a look at some of the items that we just talked about that impact driving engagement and retention. Before we do, again, a couple things to mention. The TQ solution is completely flexible, highly configurable, and designed to be really configured around your organization's process, content, workflow, etc., so that we can best solve these everyday problems that you face in the areas of how you select, manage, develop, and retain your people. Okay, so with the focus of driving engagement and retention, let's log in here as Carmen and take a look at what she can see here. Carmen is now into her homepage, and front and center we see a task dashboard that showcases everything that Carmen needs to do as a manager and in the organization. And we can see in this example, to showcase all of the different capabilities, Carmen has quite a few tasks. And we can see very quickly what those are, and within 2 clicks or less, Carmen can be completing those activities. So in this case, we can see she's got some e-learning enrollments that she's been asked to participate in. She's been asked to be a rater in a 360 for a number of individuals. She needs to set goals for one of her direct reports, needs to fill out an appraisal, so on and so forth. So as you can see very quickly, Carmen has access to what she needs to do, and this is all driven by automated notifications and reminders from the system that notify individuals by email what they need to do, and then remind them if they have not done it and are approaching a due date. Across the top here, Carmen has a few quick links of some key pieces of information and key areas of the system for her to very easily get to. Again, focusing on usability, what you'll see is about 95% of what an end user needs to do can be done in 2 clicks or less. So Carmen has access to her own talent profile. She has a quick link to an org chart view of her team, some dashboards for her to help quickly see what's going on in the organization for key activities, as well as a quick link to a performance journal to document more frequent ongoing performance conversations and anything performance related. Carmen also has a quick link to a search bar here that allows her to quickly access information on any one of her direct reports or other employees that she has access to in the system. So again, today's topic with those kind of high-level things in mind is around driving engagement and retention. And one of the things that we talked about, some of the benefits that we're going to see from this, is how we consistently communicate the most critical performance dimensions or competencies within an organization. So let's take a look at how we can leverage the TQ system to document what those are, and then discuss from there how those can be deployed into other areas of the system for data collection. So I'm going to go over here and take a look in my content library and go into a position model for a manager level position that we've identified here within Verium Analytics. Now, it's important to mention that we can have as many job-specific competency models as we need to make sure that we have the right competencies and behavioral indicators to make sure that those are relevant on a position by position basis. But we're going to go take a look at a manager position model. So as we can see, we got a couple of options here, a number of different sample models in here. We're going to choose this manager of managers model and go in to actually take a look at what we've identified as the core competencies for managers within Verum Analytics. So as we can see here, we've identified a number of competencies that are all right here. Strategic thinking and the specific behaviors that define what strategic thinking means to us for these managers. Business acumen, again, the specific behaviors, etc. Now, these competencies can be specific to your organization. We all have a library that you can leverage if you don't have your own. But again, I would say the large majority of companies out there have specific competency models that they want to use in their performance and talent management processes, again, to make sure what they're driving is relevant and specific to their organization. So as we can see, very easy to identify what these are. Within any of these two, very easy to kind of edit any of the information that needs to be, whether I need to change what this is labeled or the behaviors. I want to also point out a key piece in here is how we can, once we've identified what these competencies are, how do we tie learning and development and ongoing coaching to the competencies that we've identified that are critical for success. So here we have mapped several developmental resources to this particular competency of strategic thinking. We can select more from our resource library. Those could also be courses from your learning management system or our learning management system. We can also assign coaching tips. So these are coaching tips designed to help the manager on how to coach and manage this person around this particular competency on a day-to-day basis. So we have the ability to map these e-learning courses, these developmental resources, these coaching tips to the competencies so that we can do some very targeted development based on gaps that are identified throughout the talent management process. And we'll take a look at that here momentarily. So again, very easy to document our critical competencies, and then these can then be deployed in activities such as performance management, 360s, succession planning, selection on the front end, etc. Okay, now that we've identified and kind of talked about how we can identify what those competencies are and shown how we can tie learning resources to that, let's talk a little bit more now about how do we provide a consistent and ongoing feedback loop between managers and employees. So as a manager, one of Carmen's direct reports is a gentleman by the name of Rollo Banks. So in our search bar here, with a couple of clicks, we can click on Rollo's name and be taken directly to Rollo's talent profile. So very quick, easy access for Carmen on how to get to this information. Lots of information that we see in this profile, basic stuff that's going to come over from your HRIS system. There's a self-service component here, so Rollo can actually identify his willingness to relocate, his desired positions, location preferences, etc., which is nice for me to be able to see and for others in the organization to be able to see. But we can also really see a whole lot more stuff in here that that we want to touch on. And as we do this, there's a couple of key pieces of information. So when we talk about providing and having this ongoing feedback loop, that can look like a couple different things. One is just on a day-to-day basis, how do I need to manage this individual, and how do I get the most out of them? Well, the TalentQuest system has a revolutionary and kind of industry-first feature in here that we call TQ Insights, and it's driven by a proprietary personality and behavioral-based assessment that comes as part of our system. From that, the system can then generate insights for the manager on each of their direct reports. So as we see right here within Rollo's profile, the system has generated some key assets. He's a strong problem solver as well as very creative, and telling me more about that asset and how do I best leverage that asset on an ongoing basis. Very helpful for me to know as a manager to, again, provide that day-to-day management of the individual. And how do I leverage their strengths? Additionally, we have this management approach. How am I going to get the most out of this individual and given me some tips around that. So we see attention to details is something that's going to be important, and I need to watch out about them being overly creative. So quick little insights and information provided to me based off specific information and data from their personality assessment that's going to help me be a better manager. Very, very helpful. So when we also think about ongoing feedback, it's going to be important that we kind of take a look at several things in here. So one, your organization may do performance reviews in a more traditional way where you're getting ratings through an annual performance review. Maybe you do those quarterly. Maybe you do those more frequently than that. You can leverage the TQ system in any number of ways to do those more traditional rating-based performance reviews. And as we can see here, Rollo has a number of reviews from over the years, performance reviews. Rollo also has some 360 surveys. When we think about feedback and a feedback loop, sometimes it's also very nice from a development perspective to get feedback from all of those groups that work around the individual. So in addition to the manager, their peers, their direct reports. So we can gather that feedback and use that. We talked about the assessment, the personality-based assessment, all right here. Now, for those organizations that want to do more of the frequent but less formal types of performance reviews, we can leverage our performance journal that's built right into the application. And as we can see here, Carmen can see her direct reports. And if I go into our friend Rollo, we can see that I have the ability to document my one-on-one performance meetings on an ongoing basis. Very, very simple, very easy for me to do. I can title my entry as a one-on-one kind of performance meeting, the date that it happened, document our conversation, what I want him to work on, what he's doing well, what barriers may exist in the organization, how I can help remove those barriers, etc. And then I can choose to share that with Rollo as well if I so choose. So leveraging the performance journal to really document more frequent, less formal, kind of non-rating based performance conversations, again, to keep that feedback loop up and going. So lots of different ways, again, from formal to more informal, and from less frequent to more frequent ways to gather that information, document that information. Once we have it, we can then also use this data to help think about really providing a systematic approach towards development, more of a gap-based approach to development. So here I'm going to go in and look at Rollo's most recent 360. This is, again, a great way to get feedback and information about an employee by looking at data and feedback from those that work around them. So we can see lots of information that will come out of this report. We can have any number of different sections in here to give us information at a high level as well as then at a lower level. But what I want to focus in on is towards the end of this particular report, where it's going to automatically identify the highest rated competencies that Rollo has, as well as the lowest rated competencies. And then the key piece here is then what do we do with these lower rated competencies? And as we can see here, the system is automatically identifying certain developmental resources as well as learning courses that address this lower rated area or this gap. And as you'll recall from the beginning when we looked at those critical competencies and we assigned the developmental resources and the coaching tips and the learning courses, that's what's driving this gap-based development plan approach. So with a click of a button, if I want to enroll Rollo in this particular course around knowing yourself better to communicate better, I can do so, and boom, that course will be sent to Rollo for him to complete online through the learning management system. So lots of good information in there in the system, and really a way to use ongoing feedback to then provide systematic development opportunities for an individual. And that's going to be critical when we talk about driving engagement and driving and retention. Employees typically don't leave companies, they leave managers. And if managers do a better job of consistently providing feedback and coaching and ongoing development that's very targeted and helping employees get to the next level, that is nice to see. And so for a manager to have visibility to this data and provide targeted information based on that data, to understand where the employee wants to go, through the areas that they self-identified through their profile is a very critical piece. Now, as we think about high performers and high potentials and what that means in driving engagement and retention in an organization, it's critical to know and for employees to see that others are being promoted from within. So we can leverage a number of other areas throughout the talent management system from TalentQuest to drive talent reviews, to understand who are our high potentials, to look at a 9-box. So let's take a look at some of those opportunities that we can see in here as well. Now, right here from Rollo's profile, we can see that as his manager or somebody in HR, we can see have access to the most recent talent review summary that's been done. So we can see how promotable we have said Rollo is, possible next roles he can go into, what his potential is, his risk of loss rating, and any other comments that might have needed to be provided. Very nice for me to be able to see that right here from within the profile. But the question maybe is, how did we get that information in here? So as a quick little step right within the TQ talent management software, we can go to the talent review functionality, and Carmen can pull up Rollo and up to 2 other employees at a time. And again, now we can see this talent review form. I can see the most recent data that's in here, but also through this drop down and quick, easy navigation, be able to update this information as I see fit. So I can update the promotability level if I want to add an additional role into possible next roles or remove one. I certainly can do so. So very quick, very easy for me to edit this information as we think about, again, a talent review process. And again, I can do this on multiple people. So this is going to give me a lot of rich data into the organization to understand who do we think is promotable, what are the possible roles they can go into. We can then leverage that information into a bench strength analysis report, which leverages our org chart capability. Again, nice to be able to see this very quickly, very easily. I can see my team now layered in with risk of loss data. The other piece we can do from here is now also start identifying successors that we think are ready or will be ready to succeed a given individual within the organization. So here Carmen has already identified 2 individuals. Rollo is immediately ready. Ellen is a year to 3 months, or 3 years away, excuse me. And then we can also expand and see where do these individuals fall on a talent grid, what is their desired position to make sure there's alignment, and we can be off and running. So lots of good information here to, again, leverage the data that's collected from performance reviews, from 360s, from pre-hire assessments, from succession planning activities to help us drive retention and engagement. This risk of loss information is very helpful. If we can see if maybe somebody's disengaged for a particular reason, we want to know why and what do we need to do about that. So understanding and having visibility is critical there. Now we can also, when we think about how do we then create a bench of future leaders and who are those future leaders, a couple nice things we can do. We can, again, leverage the talent review stuff. We can go into our aggregate reports and really look at some key pieces of information in here. So here we've got some reports around succession planning and talent review. And maybe we want to look at a talent review report for everybody in a given area of the organization. So here we can see exactly who these individuals are, how promotable they are, possible next roles, potential risk of loss, all that stuff we just gathered from that talent review process, all in one single report. Very easy for me to see, and I can start making some decisions that. If I wanted to do the same for a succession planning report, I can certainly do so. Additionally, we can leverage the talent search capability in here. This is a very powerful component of the TQ system and allows me to very quickly look at information in the organization and just search on individuals that have key pieces of information or data that I'm looking for. So maybe, again, we want to look at a bench of future leaders. So we want a search of our high performers and high potentials. This is a search I happen to have saved off, but it's very easy for me to define that by pulling those that are rated above 3 on performance and above 3 on potential. That's going to give me what I'm looking for here, and I can then conduct my search from there. Okay, so I've got this search. Let's take a look at what this is going to yield for us. And again, all in the realm of making sure that we're driving retention. And part of driving retention is understanding who are those people that we want to retain, and how do we then promote from within will ultimately drive retention. It'll also drive engagement by showing a commitment to promote and develop our own employees. Here we can see a list of who those folks are. Right here within the system, I can select all 47 of these. What's nice from here is I can then plot these individuals very quickly on a talent grid, or even compare them side by side. So this talent grid is now showing me, as we would suspect based on we searched, everybody that's a high performer, high potential. It gives me great visibility into this. I can click on their name, go into more details about their profile. Lots of information I can see right from here. And again, also have the ability to, if I want to adjust where they fall on this, I certainly can right from within here, or even now compare individuals side by side to learn more about their background, their profile, their achievements, their experiences, etc. So as we've seen in today's solutions overview, we've talked about how do we drive engagement and retention in the organization. And we did that by taking a look at a number of different components and modules within the TQ talent management system. I hope that today has been a helpful time for you and very insightful for you. And we look forward to seeing you and having you join us for our next TQ Solutions overview. Thank you so much and have a great day.